Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I'm Dr. Joe Hamlett, and alongside me, as always, is Dr. Dave. How you doing, sir?
Doing excellent, sir. Doing excellent.
All right. Well, we'll get started. So, if you've been to our podcast before, if you've been part of our audience, thank you for coming back. If this is all new to you, thanks for joining us for the first time. This is the personal, professional, and career development podcast. We want to assist you in your journeys. And so, if you are seeing this, you see that we have a visitor on our screen with us. So, we have a special guest today. We have Mr. Alex Trimble. So, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, sir?
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Trimble. Back to you.
It's going to be one of those
It's gonna
types
be
of
one of
podcasts.
those. All right. Here we go.
All
Okay.
right. Well, we'll jump right into it then.
Yeah.
Alex Trimble. It is amazing to be back here with the two of you. I've loved our conversations leading up to today, and I'm really interested in finding a way that, like you said, serving, like both of you, always just so focused on serving, helping others. And I know we're gonna have a lot of fun during this episode, and we're gonna provide a lot of great content.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us today. With that, so we won't waste any time, we'll jump right into our topic. And today's topic is influence through relationships. And so we'll let Alex start off with that because I am a huge supporter, promoter of building relationships. So I'm really excited about this particular episode. So go ahead, Alex, get started for us.
So again, in alignment with the title of your podcast, I've, as most people, don't have an ordinary life, right? I don't have an ordinary beginning as well. The ideas that we've received via schooling and everything else about what a career, quote unquote, should look like are absolutely false. And I think that's the premise that we're working from today, is that we've been fed so much false information from our unintentionally from our mentors, from our parents, and also from our movies and media and so on and so forth. So just a little about my background. My first quote unquote adult job was to create and manage the Executive Leadership Development Program for the U.S. Department of the Interior, one of its cabinet level agencies, as well as then managing three government wide leadership and executive leadership development programs. Um, and I had this opportunity when I was 23 years old.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
that made no sense. But
Right.
they gave me this opportunity and I was able to run with it. And that is why I've been able to achieve what I've achieved, which is I've been running my own organization, GPS Leadership Solutions, for the last 11 years. We focus on executive coaching and doing leadership experiences, so like multi-day team building, executive retreats, things like that. Well, a few years ago, I was kind of recounting why I had been able to accomplish what I had been able to accomplish thus far in my life. And immediately the first thing popped to my mind is one, it's not because I'm smarter than other people. Um, I, I am I am primarily a very handsome face, but I'm not smarter than everyone. But what I did realize, it was that I had some amazing people around me, people who not only were nice to me and kind to me, but people who opened the door for me. People who had my back when things went wrong. And so what I've then started doing a lot of research into is why and how do you develop those types of connections. And so since then, again, a lot of interviews, a lot of research. I've written my book, Relationships That Work, which you all should check out, which is specifically focused on how to identify those people and how do you build intentional relationships that have influence. Again, you can help them and they can help you. But also my most recent workbook that just came out, Unlocking the Executive Advantage. And this takes it to the next step, which is now that you have these relationships and you understand who you should be reaching out to, how do you now manage these relationships? How do you consistently look at the people around you and dedicate more energy? Everyone has a choice, but I encourage people to dedicate more energy to those individuals who are positive in your life and who want you to excel, and be much more intentional about removing energy and time and focus on those individuals who are actually what we call detractors, people who are pulling you down, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally.
Wow.
Well, yeah, Alex, a lot to unpack, and I'm glad you brought the humor this morning because, yeah, it's always fun, and you're not the only handsome face in here either. Joe is too. Gotta give props where they're due, right? I like the intentionality aspect about the relationships and how to manage and care for those relationships because Joe and I have mentioned on other podcasts, relationship building is not a one and done thing. It is an evolution of one or more people or two or more people getting together to accomplish something, and you have to manage those relationships if you want them to work. It's, the old phrase, the emotional checking account from many years ago. If you're always withdrawing, don't expect someone else to work with you. You have to give back. You have to deposit into those emotional relationships to keep those relationships strong.
You touched on something that I think is a challenge for maybe a lot of people. You touched on the fact that you were surrounded by people that were helping you and those types of things. I think that's key because I think in a lot of cases we're in that same situation. People are helping us, they're providing us with things, and we don't recognize it. It's not until much later that you recognize it. So for you to be able to see that at a very young age is, I agree, is probably how you got to where you are today because you were able to maximize those relationships to the fullest, or you were able to, like you said, take away some of those relationships that were doing the opposite. And
Mhm.
so to be able to reckon, and I had this conversation with a young man probably 10 years ago now, the same thing. That's that. If I think back of what I would tell my younger self, that 20-year-old self, it would be understanding those relationships that are helping you or that could benefit you versus trying to do this all alone or not reaching out for help or not recognizing that help. And that's what I referred to him, and that's why I was really happy to see him in front of me asking for assistance and help, because that's what I would tell my younger self. Go find those people that want to help you, that are going to
Mhm.
give you that leg up. They're going to connect you to the right people, to the right situations, and you're going to be able to go much further than, again, someone struggling along the way on their own journey, whether self-imposed or someone has aligned that journey for you. But so I really, I can see where that makes a huge difference, that you are able to recognize that, and which is very powerful.
You again, both of you said so much. The first I want to key in on one thing you said was intentionality. That is the name of the game in everything we do at GPS Leadership Solutions. It's about intentionality because the reality is that no individual, no team, no organization becomes successful by accident. It just does not happen. Um, because in order to become successful, you have to be more than average, and you don't do things that get you wherever that is by doing the things that average people do and the average organizations do and average teams do. So you have to do something differently. And so if you're thinking about this from a energy and a resource standpoint, if you know there are certain things you have to be doing differently, why waste your time doing the wrong things when you can just be intentional and identifying what works, what didn't work, and then doing those things, right? And so what I how this initially started when we developed what's called the 4C connection model, which is how we teach individuals and organizations how to build connections with their team members, with their employees, and so on and so forth. It's called 4Cs. There's three fours with 4Cs. The first is mindset change, understanding understanding that relationships and connections are important, right? Most people don't even think that far. They think things that are crazy, like, oh, I want to make this on my own. I got to show everyone I'm the smartest person, so I got to do it by myself. And if I get an opportunity because someone knew me, that's bad. And the reality is the data doesn't show that. Data shows that 80% of of opportunities are given to people via their relationships. 80%. And
Mm.
that's not even because someone's being mean or messed up to somebody else. It's that, hey, I have an opportunity. I need someone who I can trust and I know, oh shoot, Dr. Dave, I've been working with him for years. Let me call Dr. Dave. That is a connection. That's a relationship. And so we have to be very intentional with understanding that the ball just does not roll if you're not building those connections. So first is the mindset change. Then you move into the internal clarity, which is understanding yourself. Most people think connections are about other people, but not initially. You need to understand as Dr. Joe was just saying, what do you bring to the table, right? What can you offer other people? You can't just be consistently, Dr. Dave said the same thing. You can't just be consistently taking from other people. So you need to understand, one, what you have at the table, how can you serve other people, and what do you need? What are your goals? Because now once you understand that, you can move to external clarity, which is understanding, okay, I know where I want to go. I know what I need. Who has those resources? Who has that education? Who has that knowledge? Who has that influence? And then once you know that, you go after them, start building the relationships. And the last C is behavior choice. Once you know who you need to be focusing your energy on and where they're at, yeah, how do you literally build those relationships? That comes down to the behavioral things, shaking people's hand, what to say, how to say it, when to approach, and things like that. And that's what we talk about in the book Relationships That Work. But I say it all to say is that this ultimately came out of a lot of research and interviews on looking at executive leaders, because we focus on senior leaders and executive leaders. Who are those individuals who made it to the top, but it wasn't enough just to make it to the top? Who stayed there, right? Because that's a different thing. People make it to the top all the time, but then they make the wrong move. They maybe don't have integrity or ethics and so on and so forth. They don't maintain relationships, and they get knocked out when as soon as someone else has an opportunity. So, what I encourage people consistently is just focus on that first thing, which is intentionality, knowing what you're doing. Well, two things. One, taking action, right? Just do something. Then be aware of what you're doing so you can assess what works and what doesn't work. And again, 4C, Relationships That Work talks about that. But then that next piece is what I really quickly want to just talk about. It's just like, it's people have a really bad tendency to think that relationships and connections are only about a job search. And that could not be further from the truth. The vast majority of the work that we do with organizations and companies is specifically because this is a fact. No one individual has access to all the information or resources required to get their job done, to serve their organization, to serve their stakeholders, to help their customers. No one person has everything. And so the only way to get the resources to help your organization, the mission, your customers, is to know who to connect with, build those connections, and make a relationship where they're willing to help you when you need that help. And so again, this is where a lot of the work we do is on teaching leaders how to build those connections with external stakeholders, as well as how do you build connections within your team so you're more productive, you increase your retention rates, and you have higher levels of employee engagement.
Yeah, man, Alex, I love your cadence. I mean, you're just like banging it out, and I love that. Um, the critical self-reflection piece, man, that is just so paramount to everything. Understanding who you are, where you are, what you need, what you don't need, and then realizing who do you need to go to, and reflecting on your network. Who has those things that those skills, those experiences, that education, that knowledge that you can partner with. I mean, that's why Joe and I are here. I mean, we understand that this, as much knowledge and experience as we have, we don't know everything. And you have to, like, to your point, you have to find those people, because you cannot do it alone. And Joe and I have addressed this in a couple of other episodes. You might think you're doing it alone, but someone's developed the software, someone's made the monitor, someone's produced the computer, someone's sent you the widgets or produced the food that you're eating. You're never ever doing it alone. There's always someone else out there. It's just, do you recognize and acknowledge that, and then understand who those providers are? A manufacturing company is not doing it alone. Someone provides the metals, the alloys, all those things, the trainers,
The roads.
the infrastructure, the paper, the computers, everything. And for people to say, "Hey, I'm self-made. I did it by myself." No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
That. I hate that
Well,
saying. It's again, there are a few things that we kind of know and say as society, which are just complete lies. And it's so harmful because so many people believe it. So like the self-made anything, no one does anything on their
Right.
own, right? There's always someone who has helped you, whether you know it or not. The whole thing about, here's another one. The whole thing about hard work. Oh, this is the thing I hate. Hard work takes you to the top. Just work hard. Keep your head down and work hard. And people will notice you. Just they'll notice. I promise you, everyone listening right now, each and every one knows someone, if not themselves, who works really hard and they're not where they want to be.
Yep.
So
Yep.
hard work is important. Yes, it's essential. Yes, but it's not what differentiates those individuals who end up moving up or accomplishing those bigger goals they have from the people who don't. It really does come down to the access to the resources and the opportunities, which are connections, relationships.
Yeah, I was that's where I was going to go earlier is the fact that the power in your network, the connections that you have. And I always said this, as a leader, people would come to me and say, "Hey, do you have the answer?" No, I don't have the answer, but I know where we can find the answer. That's more powerful than me having all this knowledge, all this information in my head. I know where to go because my network is big enough. That's actually how I developed a program years ago. I reached out to my network, and they started providing me with kind of like what you talk about with research. They started providing me with all these different things, and then I put together what I needed from all of those resources that I had. That's the power in your network, that you don't have to have all the answers, that you don't have to have all the know the right people or the connections, but you have enough people out there that maybe they know that person. So that's why I always tell people, build a profile, get to know people, external to your organization, internal to your organization, because you never know when you might be rubbing elbows if you're trying for a promotion and there's a director that you're at an event with. You're talking about your personal life. They learn that you can do this. Now, when somebody says, "Hey, you know that person?" Hey, I just sat there and talked to them. They have these skills. I mean, that's as simple as it can be. Just a casual conversation that could lead to something bigger and better. That's on your future goals. So that's why I always tell people, get to know people, get to know those people that are close to you, get to know those people that are maybe farther out, but just get to know. Anytime I go to an event, I try to meet somebody that I don't know, start that conversation, and then you never know how far it just continues to expand, to go, to grow.
Can I add one more piece on that,
Yeah.
if you mind? So I am 100% like you. I tell people to always, when we're coaching clients, we're always telling them, go out there and just meet people. Um, but there's a caveat. Um, are you just really going out there to just meet people? Now, yes, you could hypothetically run into anyone on the street or at the bar or whatever. There's a million different places you can meet someone. Or you can use that I word. You can be more intentional and decide, where do I want to go, so that anyone, the probability of me meeting someone who is going to be at this level, whatever I'm trying to do, increases. So if I know I want to be, like, one of my coaching clients, SVP at a Fortune 500 company, she wanted to transition to the next level. So she was making obviously good money, large position, but that's not, as we did our work in regards to what her goals are and how she needed to accomplish them, what she needed, she realized, oh God, I'm not at that level. I'm not nearly at that level yet. And so we identified a few different places, organizations that she could tie herself to so she could meet people in those spaces. Literally within 3 months of us starting our relationship, she got into this organization and met a billionaire and two millionaires. And they were like, oh,
Wow.
we love you. And they put her on a path already to become a millionaire within the next couple of years
Wow.
now, because
Wow.
she was in the right space. And so
Right.
again, being intentional about understanding what your goals are and then understanding where those people are who can help you with your goals. If I can say one last thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
again, in regards to programmatic pieces as well, there is an organization where there was a government agency we were working with a few years back now that was really focused on diversity. Diversity was something that was really important to them, inclusion and so on and so forth. And they kept looking at their executive ranks and were like, shoot, why are we not getting any diversity here? For some reason, there's nothing here. I mean, we're putting people in these programs, these leadership development programs, so none of them are getting hired. And so I had to again ask them the question, what is the goal of this program? Well, if the goal of the program is to be more inclusive as a funnel leadership pipeline, then what you're measuring has to be in alignment with that. So what they were measuring was, oh, we sent them to a class on accounting. We sent them to a class on this. And those things are great, and those are leadership skills. But leadership development is very different than leadership elevation, like intentionally trying to elevate people, intentionally finding ways to connect them with individuals who will be hiring them potentially in the coming months and years. And once we made that small little turn and said, okay, it's not just about developing these particular skills, which if they're at that level, they have a certain level of skills. It's about being intentional about making sure we're building connections with these individuals who don't have general access to the people who are already at that level who are making decisions. So how do we be intentional with building those connections, building those relationships, providing those opportunities and spaces they can meet each other and talk about their skills and so on and so forth, so that when an opportunity does come up, they say, "Oh my God, Dr. Dave, that's the guy I need on my team." Because otherwise, I'm not even thinking about that person. I'm thinking about the people who are around me who are in that space, in that situation, look exactly like me. So why would I think about someone else?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alex. I mean, you have to surround yourself with the people that are going to help you, not drag you down or stagnate your position. And I've seen that in so many places where they want those leaders to those emerging leaders, but then they don't create a pipeline that matches it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just checking boxes. Oh, I've sent them to this school, this school, this school. But where's your pipeline to get them from the position that they're in now to the next one, to the next one, to the next one? Well, I've given them the skills. They should just apply for it. That's not a pipeline, you know?
That was kind of where I was going to go with that same thing. That yeah, measuring, like you said, they weren't measuring the correct thing. They were giving them the tools that they needed, but they weren't going to the level that they needed to make sure that it was successful. So to be able to identify that, I could see that being very powerful. And like Dave just said, not many organizations are doing that. They're saying, "I give you the tools." Now they're still leaving it up to you to get to that level. And as you said earlier, that typically doesn't happen. They're working harder, they're getting all the tools they need by themselves, but they still need that additional boost to get them to that next level. And that's what they're not providing. A lot of organizations don't provide.
It reminds me of this game that I think a few people are probably aware of. This thing called chess, right? I think it's been around for a little bit. So in the game of chess, I think the way that most organizations look at leadership development is very simplistically. So if you're playing chess, if I told you, hey, the pawn can move up two, the queen can move any direction, the knight can move in an L shape, you would understand the basics. You understand the basics of chess, absolutely. That would be like comparing, like saying, okay, we're sending you to a course for conflict management. We're sending you to a course for accounting. We're sending you to a course for blank. Those are the basics, absolutely. You need those,
Right.
absolutely. But that doesn't make you good at playing chess.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference, a huge gap between understanding how the pieces move and knowing how to develop a strategy with those pieces, right?
Mhm.
And again, this is the other piece that we also talk about because I think we talk about four different areas where relationships are really critical. The first is mentorship. Because what is mentorship other than having the ability to build a relationship with someone who's going to help you reach whatever it is you're trying to reach. So mentorship, you need leadership skills. You have to be able to lead a group of people in order to be successful, right? And what is that? Is more than having a connections relationship with your people around you for them to help you reach those goals. Absolutely. Another one is again network access to information resources. So you have to have access, but again, that's nothing more than networking. The other one is the fourth one that no one talks about, and it just kills me. And again, this is why I love the trainings we do and the coaching we do, is this last piece, which is political savvy. Um,
Mm.
it is so important. But how many organizations teach their leaders how to navigate politics? And
No.
navigating
Right.
politics is nothing more than navigating high stakes relationships,
Right.
high stakes
Yep.
and complex relationships. That's all it is. But no one wants to talk about it. They want you to, they know it's important, but you're supposed to magically figure it out. But why gamble on someone magically figuring out versus just teaching them how to navigate organizational politics? And again, this is a huge gap that most organizations don't address, but we weave that into our trainings all the time just because it's a necessity.
Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of an employer I used to work for earlier in my career, and I was talking with this manager who was a subject matter expert, and they were going to put this person into, I think, assistant director. And this person was stoked because it was a nice pay raise and all of that. And I'm like, well, what kind of training have you had in management and leadership? Well, I don't need that. Oh, okay. So you're an expert in this. Yes, I am. Okay, so I'm an expert in my field. Oh, yes, you are. You understand leadership and all that. Okay, so if you can do your job and be an expert in management and leadership too, does that mean that since I'm an expert in leadership, I can be an expert in what you do? Oh no, you don't even go near those things. You'll break something. It's like, that's my point.
I love
That's
that.
my point. You need to have those classes, that education piece, whether it's mentoring, coaching, formal, informal, and then have an opportunity or a venue or a space to practice those skills. It's one thing to take the class, to your point. It's another thing to execute with strategy, with deliberateness, intentionality, and to learn lessons and what works and what doesn't work.
I recommend, I always recommend this to our clients. And there's actually an organization we worked with, about 200 people, and they were focused on, again, developing that pipeline for their senior leaders. And I I recommended to them, and they implemented it, and it worked out really well. What actually happened to me when I was younger? Um, I was, again, 32, 33 years old in those spaces. I got invited to every single executive meeting. Why? Was it because I was going to step in there and answer all the questions? No. It's because I need to sit down there and listen. And after every meeting, my supervisor, who was an executive, came back, and we'd sit in his office and we talk about what happened. So, okay, so what decisions were made and so on and so forth. Great. Okay, now we talked about that. Okay, now let's talk about what happened under the surface, because those are two different conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So this person agreed with this person, but why did they agree? Or they disagree, or they didn't want to support. Oh, well, actually they didn't want to support them because last year they did X, Y, and Z, and they took resource reforms. And so that was the space, and that's how I learned to navigate organizational politics, which is literally just being there and watching, and then having to try it out myself. I consistently love implementing that into organizations. They call it shadowing. But if you have someone who you believe is going to make it to that level, start bringing them to your meeting. They don't got to say anything, but let them listen, and then have that conversation with them about what they heard and why they heard it, and actually discuss it. Now, the next thing that was really cool that this does, though, is that by bringing those individuals to this level, to these meetings, and exposing them, not only are they learning about what's actually going on at this organizational level and so on and so forth, but people are now becoming aware of them. You're now elevating their status because, wow, this person's in the room with us. He or she must have something. They must be something smart. So maybe I should pay more attention to them. Maybe I should have lunch with them. I can't tell you how many times that people walked up to me in the in the lunchroom, or walked up to me in the street. Hey, Alex, how you doing? Hey, da, da, da. And just because they saw me always at that level, so they expected me to be at the certain level, and the conversations they had with me elevated my career. So I consistently implement those into the programs that that allow, because not all organizations, unfortunately, are comfortable allowing some people to listen in on conversations. But ultimately, if you're going to be elevating people, at some point they're going to hear it, right? So
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you said a couple
We,
of things that I
we
want to
got
get
about
this
two
out.
minutes left. Sorry,
Yep.
Joe.
Oh,
I just
shoot.
wanted to well, I just wanted to touch on what you said about the mentoring and taking you places and opening or exposing you to those things. That's what happened to me. I had a mentor who did that for me, took me to places at the organizational level where decisions were made, and just like a fly on the wall, just sit there and listen and understand what was happening in that room. And that was so powerful for me. That that propelled me to the next level because I started to understand that. And the observation and that's what I tell people a lot of times: don't go in a meeting and just want to throw input. Listen, look at what's happening, look at the dynamic of the room, look at the people, look at how they respond. Pay attention to all those things, and you'll get a lot more out of that than, again, just going in there expecting to respond, expecting to. You can see so many things happening in the room if you pay attention to it. And that's what I like to do when I go into meetings. I don't want to be the person that, always talking. I want to hear, I want to see how, when someone says something, how it affects that person across the table from, or somebody behind them they don't see. So those are the things, those I think are very important, again, to get people to the next level, because that's what I started doing, bringing people in so that they could experience that, so that they could see it, and then they can make a decision on on their own. No, that's not what I want, or wow, thanks, and they continue to go. But I just wanted to get that in there because you touched on those things that were definitely key in my progression and my advancement throughout my career. So,
And if I have one last thing to say, just look, I do encourage everyone to, again, take a look at the book Relationships at Work, but the new one I mentioned earlier, Unlocking the Executive Advantage, I promise you, it's a workbook specifically designed for actually executive leaders and those individuals who are right on the cusp of becoming an executive. But if you're interested in going up that path, do the work now. You're only going to get yourself ready prepared. You can get it on Amazon for
absolutely.
$67, or you can go to gpsleadership.org and you can get it at no cost. We're letting the first 100 people download the digital copy for free at no cost.
Okay.
So you can get it there, gpsleadership.org.
Okay. Thanks for that. Well, any last parting remarks that you'd like to leave our audience with, Alex?
Well, the parting remark would be take action. Um, the reason why most people, I think, don't reach the goals that they set for themselves is because twofold: um, analysis paralysis,
Mm.
and waiting for that perfect moment. But I'll tell you, both of those are lies. It's generally fear. What happens if I don't get it right? What if happens if I mess up? What if they don't like me? What if the blah 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 blah? Um, there's it's just fear. And I'll tell you, the panacea for fear is action. The more time you give yourself to think about why you shouldn't do it, the more reasons you're going to come up for why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Take action, do something today. You've literally just listened to this episode, push pause. Well, first click the like on it and share it, then push pause, and then literally say, what am I going to do today to further my career, my goals? And that could just be emailing a colleague to say, hey, look, can I meet with you next week? But do something, take action, because what you'll learn really quickly is that you didn't die.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Reaching out to someone, generally speaking, it's not going to kill you. And you're like, oh, that was easier than I thought. And I can keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Alex. So I'll pass it off to Dave. Do you have any final comments or anything?
Alex, this was awesome. I mean, talk about action, content, packed enjoyment. Man, you fed my appetite, bro. I mean, this was
Absolutely.
awesome. I mean, I looked at the time and I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, it definitely
So
flew by.
yeah, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and bringing so much content, so much information, so much perspective to this topic, man. And yeah, I mean, reach out to Alex, everyone. I mean, this guy's got it going on.
Well,
Thank you
thanks,
both for
Dave.
having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, I don't want there's you just unpacked so many things, and again, we talk about relationships, and that's where it all starts. Again, this this journey me and Dave were on. It started with just a simple, you know, connection, turned into a relationship. Now we've met Alex. This is another relationship. It's about building those relationships, because you, again, it's not just to take something from people, but it's about having a relationship that's beneficial for all parties, because we can all learn from each other, we can all help each other. So just continue to build those relationships. So like Dave said, yeah, time flew by on this one. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today. And like Dave said, reach out to Alex, because I'm sure he can help you, your organization, with all this content. I mean, he just gave you 30 minutes, and it was over the top. So I could just imagine if you were with him for a full session. So again, thanks, Alex, for being here. Um, and with that, again, thanks for hanging in with us. We went over a little time a little bit, but this was definitely a good episode. So if you know somebody that might benefit from this, please continue to share, like, comment. Please let us know what you want to hear from us about, or from other guests. And with that, we want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.